The metallic clang of the final bell shattered the oily pre-dawn silence. It echoed through our breath, condensing in the cold factory air, mixing with the stench of hot rubber and sour sweat. We shuffled out beneath fluorescent lights that flickered like weak, indecisive arguments. Tony elbowed me as we lined up for coats. "Hey, data boy, dream up any new magic numbers tonight." His voice was low and mean, but tired too. I ignored him, though my fingers gripped my time card tight. Factory dawns have a way of making even hope feel rusty. All around us, men pulled jackets over stooped shoulders. My Uncle Lou grunted somewhere behind me, louder for my benefit, "Don't forget to punch out Einstein, or don't. Let 'em see if the computer will finish these tires for us." The others laughed, thin and forced at the end of another graveyard shift. I faced the door, steadied my breathing, and stepped into the freezing blue morning of Queens. My boots treaded slush stained with last night's soot. I kept my silence. That was my rebellion, maybe my armor too. Back then, nobody understood what I tried to build on the side. In the eyes of my family, my block, I was this odd, silent kid pretending to find sense in computers and colored spreadsheets. Turns out silence can grow into resolve if you press it enough. My father's car idled at the curb, steam curling from the hood where salt had already begun to corrode. He tapped the windshield impatiently. I knew his rules. No talking about dreams, no talk of code or digital art, as he sneeringly called it. We rode home side by side, words and disappointments muffled beneath old Sinatra tapes. On our stoop, my mother met us with strong coffee and her gentle scolding. "What nonsense will you be up to before sleep, Mikey?" She didn't wait for my answer. My answer never changed, just the glow from my laptop through the kitchen window, mathematical puzzles scribbled on pizza boxes. My hands would shake, delicate from lack of sleep, but the images I built with my data, colors spooling into fractals, city patterns blooming in simulations, those felt more real to me than the calluses on my palms. They weren't real to anyone else, not back then. My father, uncle, even my sister all saw a waste of time, something for people with soft hands and rich parents. "You want out. Clock in for overtime, save up for a van, maybe fix your cousin's shop," my father would say. "This artsy numbers stuff, what you joining the circus?" I think the worst thing was that I rarely fought back. Arguing felt useless. Instead, I waited for night when everyone slept and the city hummed its digital lullaby, streetlights, distant sirens, radiators, and the ever-buzzing router in our kitchen. That's when I built things. Datasets scraped from open web portals, subway schedules, city housing spreadsheets, pollution readings. I fed everything into my lap-bound Franken-computer, and sometimes something unexpected bloomed. Patterns that made my chest ache, the city at midnight, its veins mapped out in color swirls, or the shape of hunger through housing eviction records. Private things, beautiful in ways I had no words for. Another year wore by this way. I applied for scholarships, fellowships, mailed portfolios to companies and museums, got nothing but thin rejections and thick silence. Everyone saw, everyone had an opinion about me, my slouch, my screen glow, my stubborn refusal to fully join the line at the factory or the neighborhood rhythms. When my uncle lost a finger and they asked me to pick up extra overtime, I refused. That cemented it. My father didn't speak to me for weeks. My aunt called me ungrateful over cold beans at Sunday dinner. "You'll see," I said once, barely above a whisper. She snorted. "See what, Mikey? These numbers of yours gonna fix the pipes, feed us." But something had started to change. Not outside, the factory floor grew ever more hopeless, the crowds at the job center thicker, but inside my own code, patterns began to cohere. My tools, free and cobbled together, finally clicked. I started to post work online, a data portrait of Brooklyn's languages, an animated mural mapping asthma rates to bus lines. By then, I was running on coffee, bitterness, and a quietly gathering determination. My skin prickled each time I hit upload, a terror of being found out, mocked out in public. The night before Christmas, outside, snow flashed neon as police cruisers prowled by. My phone buzzed, an email. A curator from a minor Manhattan gallery, someone I followed but never dared to contact, had seen my Brooklyn piece. "Would you be open to a collaborative show? Your city work has teeth." I almost dropped the phone. My hands shook so hard I pressed the device to my forehead just to remember what real things felt like. When I told my parents, they said nothing. The exhibit was small, a pop-up in Alphabet City, all creaky floors, harsh lights, more wine than food. I wore my best factory shirt and bussed it there alone. No family came. I watched from the doorway as strangers craned over my screens, listening to whispers. "Is this real data? Look at those overlays." This kid ruined my idea of city maps. At the end of the night, I shook the curator's hand. She pressed a wad of 20s into my palm. You've got something, Mike, don't stop. That cash bought me 2 months' rent and a sharper laptop. But at home, it was still ridicule. My uncle threw a mouthful of soup. What do you want? A medal? Even my mother sighed over her tea. Just don't break your heart over this. I began to drift. First to the city, then to better gigs, commissioned maps, visualizations for urban renewal teams, then a spot on a major consulting project. I kept my head down, rode the subway all night, lived on bagels and data dreams. The money trickled in, not enough to astonish but enough to leave the factory. I packed my locker quietly, didn't wait for applause. 2 years became 5, my skills sharpened, my name appearing on panels in bylines. I taught myself to speak on stages, still the quietest in any room but confident now that I belonged where city and code and story met. My father called less and less. When he did, he asked, "You got insurance?" Or sometimes, "You eating all right?" I missed home most on Sunday afternoons, rain against grey concrete, the smell of sausage and wet laundry, my little niece's sticky fingers reaching for my phone, even the sharp-tongued jokes at my expense. But more than anything, I missed the stubborn, burnt urge to prove something to people who would never believe it. When the Guggenheim announced my solo data mural, an interactive piece mapping New York's climate data onto city walls, I stared at the email until dawn. I told almost no one, even success I'd learned is easier to hoard quietly. That spring my aunt called, "Your uncle's sick, Mikey, real sick this time, come by sometime, yeah." Her voice was soft, an unfamiliar thing I promised I would. The opening was a blur, cameras flashing, people crowding, media questions slipping past me like wind. What stayed with me was the city councilwoman shaking my hand, whispering, "We use your visualizations to read the city. You know that, don't you?" After the show, beneath the museum's marble sweep, I checked my phone, one missed call from my mother. The next Sunday, I took the earliest F train out of Manhattan, riding past the old factory, its smokestacks still coughing into the morning sky. The sun was sharp, bouncing off rusted warehouses. I walked the last 12 blocks past barber shops, discount marts, the corner where teenagers hawked knockoffs. The neighborhood felt smaller, older, but also kinder. At my parents' stoop, my father waited. His hair was more grey than black, his hands larger somehow. He didn't say much, just nodded and moved aside. Inside, it was all the same. The faded wallpaper, grandma's rosary over the TV, the giggle of my niece running down the hall. My uncle was spread across the couch, blanket tucked around wasted legs. He grinned when he saw me, the old mischief in his eyes. "Da Vinci Returns," he rasped, mouth cracked but smiling. "Heard you made some big pictures out of subway schedules, eh?" The others were in the kitchen, my mother at the stove, my father pretending to read the paper. My sister tackled me in a quick, unembarrassed hug. The table was set with cheap plates and abundance, eggs, sausage, slabs of bread. My mother pressed a mug of coffee into my hands. Nobody mentioned my work. Not until dessert when my niece poked my side, her face streaked with chocolate. "Mom said your picture's up in a big museum. Is it true, Uncle Mike?" I nodded, suddenly shy. "It's a big wall full of city data, a sort of map." She beamed. "Daddy says that's why you don't come for Sunday macaroni. 'Cause you're a famous computer painter." Tony across the table smirked. "Can you draw money with your artsy maps? Don't forget us when you're a millionaire, kid." My father put down his fork. For a second I thought he would say something sharp. But he only looked at me steady and hard, the way he used to before a rare compliment. "We saw your name in the paper, Mike," he said, "on that wall." He stumbled, climatology something. "People down at the club, some of them went, they took pictures, said it looked like magic what you did." Silence settled over the table, not the cold silence of the factory, but the full, breathtaking pause before something honest. My hands shook a little around my mug. My uncle coughed, spat into a tissue and croaked, "Show us, Mikey, show us what you did." I felt my cheeks flush, but then I nodded slow and dug out my phone. The images, my mural alive and sprawling across the museum marble, gleamed in the glow of our battered kitchen. I pulled up the video, flicked it onto the old TV screen via cable. In the footage, the city pulsed alive. Lines swooping, colors shifting, neighborhoods blooming and fading. It was New York but not, the air made visible, histories tangled in pixel color, subway and sky spinning into sense. My data mural, 10 feet high, streams of visitors trailing fingertips across light and legend, people pausing, gasping, a reporter pointing at my name. In our kitchen, nobody moved. My niece crawled into my lap, eyes wide. That's you, Tony breathed. My mother, hands trembling, pressed her palm to the screen. All this came from your computer. Yes, I managed. From the city, from us. For the first time, my father laughed, not cruelly but with a rough pride. All right, maybe all those midnight numbers of yours really meant something, maybe. But the moment remains not for applause but for the silence, the thick air of acknowledgment. Not victory exactly, but the sense of something true settling between us. My uncle's eyes closed, mouth curled into a tired smile. We used to say you'd never make it, he whispered. Guess we were the ones who didn't see it coming. That night I walked 2 blocks through sleeping streets. Queen's neon and sodium lamps painted the slush gold under my boots. I passed the old factory, the front window now boarded up, and touched a palm to the brick. I remembered those dawns, the jeers, the ache in my back, the steady crush of being told not to dream. My resolve had been forged in that silence. Now, with the city's breath behind me and my family gathered on the other side, I let something colder melt away. I had come back, not in triumph but in recognition. My dream, once ridiculous, was real, seen, needed. And now finally understood.